I need to say something most people avoid saying out loud. Waiting on God can hurt, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a slow, quiet way that settles into your chest when days turn into months and prayers start sounding the same. It hurts when you're still showing up, still believing, still trying to do the right thing, yet nothing seems to move. You don't talk about this kind of pain much because you're afraid it might sound like a lack of faith. But it isn't. It's exhaustion. It's the weight of hoping without seeing. There's a unique kind of tiredness that comes from waiting on God. Not physical tiredness, not even emotional burnout alone, but a deep inner fatigue where you begin to wonder how much longer you can keep trusting without some sign that your prayers are landing somewhere. You still believe God is real. You still believe He's good. But you're starting to wonder if He sees this specific moment of your life. That thought can sneak in quietly, usually late at night or early in the morning when distractions are gone and your thoughts get louder. Maybe you've told yourself to be patient. Maybe you've reminded yourself that God has a plan. Maybe you've even encouraged other people while secretly feeling empty yourself, and that's the part that hurts the most. You're doing everything you know how to do, yet inside you feel stuck in place, watching time pass while your situation stays the same. No breakthrough, no clarity, just waiting. This is where many people start blaming themselves. They replay their prayers, their choices, their past mistakes, wondering if they said the wrong thing or missed the right moment. They start questioning whether they're asking for too much or not asking correctly. That internal questioning slowly turns into pressure, and pressure turns into silence because you don't know what else to say to God anymore. You've already said everything. If this feels familiar, I want you to hear this clearly. The pain of waiting does not mean God is disappointed in you. It does not mean your faith is weak. It does not mean you've failed some spiritual test. It means you are human and you care deeply about something that hasn't resolved yet. That's not a flaw. That's honesty. There is a kind of faith that looks strong on the outside, but feels fragile on the inside. And that's often the faith of someone who has been waiting longer than they expected. You didn't sign up for this length of silence. You didn't imagine the delay would stretch this far, and now you're here, still believing, but also quietly hurting. That tension is real. Ignoring it doesn't make it go away. Naming it is the first step toward healing. If you're listening right now and something in your chest feels tight, if you feel seen but also a little exposed, that's not an accident. It means this moment is touching something true in you. And before you try to fix it, rush it, or explain it away, I want you to stay with me, because there's a question you might be carrying that you've never fully allowed yourself to face. And understanding that question changes everything about how you experience this waiting season. There's a question many people carry but rarely say out loud. It doesn't sound rebellious, and it doesn't come from a place of anger. It comes from fatigue. The question is this: what if I've been faithful and nothing changes? Not what if God exists, not what if prayer works, but what if I keep showing up and the situation stays the same? That question can feel dangerous, so most people push it down quickly. They replace it with positive thoughts, spiritual language, or silence. But the question doesn't disappear. It waits. This question usually doesn't show up during moments of crisis. It shows up after you've already survived the worst parts, after you've adjusted, after you've learned how to live with disappointment without letting others see it. It shows up when you realize you've been strong for a long time and strength is starting to feel lonely. You begin to wonder if endurance is all there is, or if something more is ever coming. The reason this question feels so heavy is because it touches identity. You've been faithful not just in belief, but in action. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You prayed when quitting would have made sense. You trusted when doubt felt more honest. And now you're asking yourself quietly if faithfulness guarantees anything at all. That thought can feel like betrayal, even though it's really a search for meaning. What makes this question even harder is that you may have seen other people receive answers faster than you did. People who prayed later, struggled less, or seemed less committed. You don't resent them, but you don't understand the difference either. You start comparing timelines, not because you want to, but because your heart is trying to make sense of delay. And when there's no explanation, the mind fills the gap with self-blame or quiet disappointment. Here's the truth most people never hear. Asking this question does not cancel your faith. It reveals the depth of it. Shallow faith doesn't wrestle. It avoids. Deep faith stays engaged even when clarity is missing. The fact that you are still here, still listening, still open, means something inside you refuses to give up, even when answers are slow. That's not weakness, that's resilience. Many people confuse doubt with disbelief. They are not the same. Doubt asks questions because it wants to understand. Disbelief shuts the door completely. If you're questioning, it means you still care. It means you still hope there is meaning in this waiting. And that hope, even when it's tired, is not something to be ashamed of. If that question has crossed your mind even once, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken. You're standing at a crossroads where honesty begins to matter more than appearance. What you do next depends on how you understand this season you're in. Because waiting is not just about time passing. It's about what happens inside you while nothing seems to change. And there's a side of waiting that no one really prepares you for. Most people are never prepared for what waiting actually feels like. They're told to be patient, to stay faithful, to trust the process, but no one explains what happens on the inside when waiting stretches longer than expected. Waiting is not just a pause between prayers and answers. It's a place where emotions slowly shift, where energy fades, where certainty becomes quieter. This is the waiting room nobody warned you about. At first, waiting feels active. You pray with focus, you expect movement, you stay alert for signs. But as time goes on, something changes. Prayers begin to feel repetitive, not because they lack sincerity, but because you've already said everything you know how to say. You start praying shorter prayers, not out of laziness, but because your heart is tired of explaining the same pain over and over again. Silence begins to feel heavier than words. Motivation slowly drains in this space, not all at once, but gradually. You still believe, but belief takes more effort. You still trust, but trust feels less confident and more like a daily decision. Faith doesn't disappear, it just becomes quieter, less expressive, less emotional. You stop expecting dramatic breakthroughs and start settling into survival mode. You tell yourself you're being realistic, but deep down, you miss the hope you used to feel. This is where many people start misunderstanding themselves. They assume something is wrong with their faith because it doesn't feel strong anymore. They compare their current state to who they used to be and wonder where that fire went. But what's really happening is emotional erosion. Waiting doesn't break faith all at once. It wears it down slowly, like water against stone, like time against certainty. In this waiting room, you learn how to function while disappointed. You learn how to smile without excitement, how to encourage others while quietly holding unanswered questions. You become reliable, consistent, and strong, but also a little numb. Not because you don't care, but because caring deeply for too long without relief requires emotional protection. So you adapt. This season can feel isolating because it doesn't look like a crisis. From the outside, everything seems fine. You're still standing, still showing up, still believing. But inside, you're carrying the weight of unresolved hope. You're learning how to live with the tension of trusting God while not understanding His pace. That tension can feel confusing, especially when no one talks about it. If you're here, it doesn't mean you failed spiritually. It means you've been waiting faithfully in a world that doesn't slow down for unanswered prayers. And before you decide this season defines you, or that this is all there is, you need to understand something important. God's silence in moments like this is often misunderstood, and what feels like absence may actually be something else entirely. When God feels quiet, the first assumption we make is that something is wrong. Either we did something wrong, or God has stepped back, or maybe our prayers aren't as important as we thought they were. Silence feels personal. It feels like distance. But silence does not always mean absence. Sometimes it means something is happening in a way you cannot see or rush. Think about how much of life's most important work happens out of sight. Construction doesn't look like progress at first. Walls go up, noise increases, dust fills the air, and for a while it seems like nothing useful is happening. But beneath the surface, foundations are being reinforced. Measurements are being checked. One small mistake would affect everything built afterward. No one rushes that part because speed would cost stability. Seeds work the same way. The moment they are planted, everything important happens underground. There is no visible proof that growth has begun. In fact, for a while, it looks like nothing is happening at all. But pulling the seed out early to check would destroy the process. Growth requires unseen time. Even medical scans follow this pattern. When doctors go quiet, it's often because they're studying something carefully. They're not ignoring the patient. They're paying close attention. Rushing conclusions would be irresponsible. Silence in those moments is not neglect. It's focus. God often works in these same hidden ways. Not because he wants to confuse you, but because some things cannot be built, healed, or prepared in public view. Silence becomes the space where alignment happens, where strength develops, where clarity forms without pressure. You may not feel movement, but that does not mean nothing is shifting. This is where waiting becomes dangerous if misunderstood. If you assume silence means rejection, you begin pulling away emotionally. You stop expecting anything good. You lower your hope to protect yourself. But if you understand silence as preparation rather than punishment, the waiting changes shape. It becomes less about counting days and more about learning how to remain open without burning out. God's quiet seasons are not tests designed to break you. They are often invitations to deepen trust without relying on constant reassurance. That kind of trust feels uncomfortable because it removes control. You can't measure progress. You can't predict outcomes. You can only decide whether you will stay present or emotionally withdraw. If you're still here, still listening, something in you senses that this silence may not be the end of the story. And that awareness matters, because before anything changes around you, something needs to shift within you, and that shift doesn't start with answers. It starts with how you wait. There is a prayer meant specifically for this moment, and it is different from the ones you've been praying so far. This is the point where many people expect another instruction, another explanation, or another reason to hold on a little longer. But this moment is different. This prayer is not about convincing God to move faster or explaining your situation one more time. You've already done that. This is not a prayer of urgency. It's a prayer of endurance. It exists for the space you're in right now, not the outcome you're hoping for. Most prayers during waiting seasons are focused on change. Change the situation, change the timeline, change the outcome. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when waiting becomes long, constantly praying for change without receiving it can quietly drain your strength. You begin to associate prayer with disappointment. You approach God already bracing yourself. That's not because prayer is weak, but because your heart is tired. This prayer is different because it does not fight the waiting. It meets you inside it. It doesn't ask God to hurry. It asks God to hold you steady. It doesn't demand clarity. It asks for peace that can exist even when clarity is missing. It's a prayer that shifts the focus from when things will change to how you will survive without hardening your heart. There is a moment in every long waiting season when control has to be released again, not because you failed the first time, but because waiting requires repeated surrender. Letting go once is not enough when uncertainty keeps returning. This prayer is about releasing the need to manage outcomes and instead asking for the strength to remain open, honest, and alive inside. This is where something subtle but powerful happens. When you stop trying to force the future and start tending to your inner world, waiting loses some of its power over you. It may still hurt, but it no longer defines you. You stop measuring your faith by results and start experiencing it as relationship, not based on answers, but on presence. As this prayer begins, the goal is not to feel something dramatic. It's not to manufacture emotion or chase reassurance. The goal is to create space, space to breathe, space to tell the truth, space to rest without giving up. This prayer exists to keep your heart alive while you wait, not distracted, not numb, not shut down. Stay with me here. Slow down your breathing. Let the noise settle, because what comes next is not meant to be rushed or skimmed. It's meant to be felt. This is the heart of this moment. God, I come to you without pretending today. I'm tired of waiting, not tired in my body alone, but tired in my spirit. Tired of waking up with hope and going to bed with questions. Tired of holding faith and disappointment in the same hands. I don't come to impress you. I come because I need you. There are moments when I don't understand you, and I want to be honest about that. I don't always understand the silence. I don't always understand the delay. I don't always understand why I've had to be strong for so long. Sometimes I wonder if you see how heavy this has become. So I say it now, out loud or in my heart. This waiting has been hard. Right now, I release what I cannot control. I release the timeline I keep replaying in my mind. I release the outcomes I've tried to manage. I release the pressure I've put on myself to stay hopeful every moment. I admit that I don't have the power to fix this, speed this up, or make it make sense. And for this moment, I stop trying. Help me trust you here. Not in the future version of my life where everything is resolved, but right here, in this unfinished place. Teach me how to trust you without answers, how to believe without proof, how to stay open when closing my heart would feel safer. I don't want to grow hard while I wait. I don't want disappointment to define who I'm becoming. Give me peace that does not depend on explanations. Peace that does not require certainty. Peace that settles my thoughts when they spiral late at night. Peace that reminds me I am held, even when I don't feel progress. Let that peace guard my heart when impatience rises and when comparison tries to steal my hope. Strengthen what feels weak inside me, not by removing the waiting immediately, but by renewing my inner life day by day. Teach me how to breathe again in this season, how to rest without giving up, how to hope without forcing myself. I don't ask to escape this moment. I ask to be sustained through it. If I've started to doubt myself, remind me that endurance is not failure. If I've questioned my faith, remind me that honesty draws me closer to you, not farther away. If I felt forgotten, remind me now that I am seen, that my prayers matter, that my waiting is not wasted. I place my heart back in your hands, even if I've done this before. I trust you with what I cannot resolve. I trust you with the parts of my story that feel unfinished. And even here, even now, I choose to believe you are with me, not rushing me, not abandoning me, but walking with me step by step through this waiting. If you felt something shift just now, even slightly, that matters. It doesn't have to be overwhelming peace or sudden clarity. Sometimes it's simply a quiet release, a softening in your chest, or a sense that you don't have to carry everything alone in this moment. That is not something to dismiss. That is your heart responding to being honest instead of strong. Waiting can make you question your worth without you realizing it. When answers don't come, it's easy to assume you've been overlooked or set aside. But waiting does not mean you are forgotten. It does not mean you missed your moment. It does not mean God has moved on. It means you are still in process, still held, still seen, even when the path ahead is unclear. You may feel behind in life, as if time has moved forward without you, but spiritual growth does not follow the same timeline as achievements or milestones. Some of the deepest transformation happens in seasons that look unproductive from the outside. God sees the endurance it takes to stay open, to keep trusting, to keep showing up when nothing is resolved yet. That kind of endurance is not invisible. If you're disappointed with yourself for feeling tired or unsure, let that go. You are not disqualified because you feel weak. You are not less faithful because you needed this moment. Strength is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision to remain present even when struggle stays. And you are doing that right now. Let this be a reminder that you don't have to force yourself to feel okay. You don't have to rush into optimism or explain away your pain. You are allowed to exist in this in-between space without judgment. God is not waiting for you to be more certain before staying close. He is already here, steady, patient, and attentive. As you move forward from this moment, you may still have unanswered questions. The situation may not change immediately, but something important has already happened. You allowed honesty to replace pressure. You allowed trust to exist without clarity. That is not small. That is how faith survives long seasons of waiting. Hold onto this truth as you continue. You are not alone in this process. You are not doing it wrong, and your waiting does not define you more than God's presence does. If this moment spoke to you, let yourself respond. Not out of obligation, but connection. Waiting can feel isolating, and sometimes the simple act of acknowledging where you are reminds you that you're not walking through this alone. If you feel comfortable, type "I'm still trusting" in the comments. Not as a declaration of perfection, but as a quiet statement of endurance. If you want to continue having moments like this, moments where faith is honest and not rushed, consider staying connected. Subscribing is not about numbers or algorithms. It's about creating space to pause, reflect, and pray together again when you need it. You don't have to come with energy or certainty. Just come as you are. There will be days ahead when the waiting feels heavier again. Days when this peace feels distant. That doesn't undo what happened here. It simply means you're human. When those moments come, remember that returning is always an option. You don't have to carry everything by yourself, and you don't have to disappear when things feel unresolved. As you go back into your day, carry this with you. You don't have to rush your process. You don't have to compare your timeline to anyone else's. You don't have to explain your waiting to be worthy of support. God meets you where you are, not where you think you should be. You don't have to wait alone.